Any discussion surrounding Poppy Playtime tends to revolve around the lore and the mystery of the game, but I can't find any video that definitively answers how the game is to play and the experience. I will not pretend like this video will do that, but I want to at least discuss my experience and why I didn't enjoy the first 2 episodes. But before I do that, I must shill. Hi, I am Gallows. I like editing and making videos. If you want to see more of this, please subscribe and leave a like and comment your Poppy Playtime experience. Below I have my socials and Twitch where you can get updates and new videos and see my live reaction to games. Okay, we're done? Awesome, sweet, let's continue. And of course we can discuss the lore at a later date when the story is completed. But before, I want to discuss some other aspects. For example, its clear inspiration it takes from liminal space and analog horror, and what makes something scary, especially in games. When I sat down to play Poppy Playtime, I imagined I would have the same experience I had with FNAF. A moment of fear at the first scare, and the rest of the time I would be filled with an awkward boredom and decide to play something different and something actually scary. And for the most part, this was my experience. So, where do we begin? So let's start this discussion off with one of the easiest gameplay mechanics ever talk about, immersion. By the way, that is a lie. It is incredibly hard to do this, and I've rewritten this part of the script a countless amount of times. Please send help. I feel like the term immersion gets thrown around a lot nowadays, and it's kind of lost its meaning. So let's define it. The fact of becoming completely involved in something. In my opinion, to immerse yourself in something is to let the atmosphere take you away and settle you into the POV character's point of view. Don't worry, I know how janky that sounds. While the world around you fades away, you can immerse yourself in hundreds of different things. For example, the other day, I was immersed in this YouTube video. Definitely worth a watch if you haven't, but look at the views, probably already have. Nowadays, you will hear sexist assholes complain about their immersion because of an aspect of the canon has been changed. E.g., look at the Star Wars fanbase and the Fallout 4 jet controversy. Horror is one of the best video game genres for immersion. If you're not immersed in the game, then you won't be scared. So how does horror do this? One word: atmosphere. I'll try and use modern examples here. 1, because we are talking about a modern format of horror. 2, because everyone and their mother has gone on about Silent Hill 2 and I have nothing new to add to that conversation. I think the first example my audience will understand regarding atmosphere is the first FNAF game. If you haven't already seen my video, it should be somewhere over here, I'm not too sure. The reason why the first FNAF game kicked so much ass and changed the gaming landscape wasn't because of the lore or the marketability of the characters, but instead the atmosphere. When people talk about Scott cooking, this is what they mean. Hell, you want to know why Security Breach sucks so much? Because there was no atmosphere. It chose to focus on marketability of its characters and its lore. Another great example is RE7. This game breathes atmosphere, from the claustrophobic rooms to the art design. I think these 2 games are a great example of atmosphere and immersion. And you could pitch Poppy Playtime as a mixture of both. FNAF's mascots with RE's free roam horror in a liminal space arena. But it doesn't live up to this comparison. Why? Because the hardest and most complicated thing to capture in any media is tone. RE7 works because it captures that backwater, gator wrestling visual and marries it beautifully with dark rooms, naturalistic lighting, and beautiful graphics. Notice that there isn't all the fucking bloom in that game. FNAF works because it takes control away and says fuck it. You are going to have to carefully pay attention to the sound and what is on screen. Marry this with an amazing atmosphere recording and all the sounds, placing you in a dark and mysterious world you cannot move in. All these elements in the game are used to beautifully create tone and add atmosphere. So why bring this up? Poppy Playtime's art style is fighting with the tone. If I'm meant to feel fear and dread, then why am I in a well-lit room with colorful pipes and props? Maybe it's meant to make me feel uneasy, but it's impossible to immerse myself when the only thought in my head is, it's like this so children won't get scared and not buy Huggy Wuggy merch. So if it isn't working, then when did it scare me? I did say on my stream, whoa, that actually scared me. But that was in relation to a jump scare. I wasn't scared or felt uneasy because of the atmosphere. I was scared because the game used a rug pull on me, which is fine. But because it was scripted, once I had experienced it, I knew when it was coming and avoiding it became a chore. When playing a horror game, jump scares are fine. But to use a scripted jump scare should be avoided at all costs. It's why people hate it in horror movies. When you know it's there, you are no longer scared by it.
But it will make the YouTuber jump and scream.
And with that argument, I think you've proven the next point I was going to make. Who are these games made for? These games aren't made to scare people. They're made to be reacted to, and use those reactions as advertising for their merch. When I booted up the game for the first time, there was one thing that stuck out to me like a sore thumb. Merch was an option in the menu. It got worse with the second episode, with an ad with a new toy in the corner. How can I get immersed when the first thing I see is an ad? Now I understand that people must eat and a game's purpose is to make money. Unless you're Ubisoft in 2024. Ooh, sick burn. But honestly, couldn't you do that on the Steam page or something? What is this, a mobile game? Oh, wait. Which reminds me, this video is sponsored by Raid Shadow. Nah, I'm kidding. Imagine if I actually did that. I would have sold out harder than these guys. But seriously, these elements are fighting against each other and leaving the player unimmersed and left bored. Can I just preface this by saying this is only for the first 2 episodes at least. There's been a massive jump in scale, I've seen at least, while playing the third one. I'm halfway through it, I might want to restart it, but if you guys want to see that, feel free to follow me on Twitch. It will be a lot of fun to see you guys there. Love you. So let's actually begin to break down these larger elements of the game, episode by episode. Just a heads up, I will only be discussing gameplay and some narrative elements in the video for the first 2 games. If you want a full critique of the lore, this will occur when they finish the series. Now, I want to know that this part of the game is for free and used to sell the rest of the episodes. Plus, it was made up of a small team of 29, according to my sources. And to compare this to a game like PT, which only had 31 people credited, is a little unfair. These 2 games are made by completely different teams with different levels of experience, and one was backed by a massive evil corporation that has almost ruined their IPs and constantly pissed the bed when it comes to making decisions. But I think the scale is a good example to look at. PT kept it to one hallway, with one monster that follows you and a focus on story-relevant puzzles. Poppy, on the other hand, leaves you alone for the majority of the game and spends the time telling you to find objects and complete 3 puzzles. The major difference here is that PT uses the same hallway, only changing specific aspects, except for once when the layout completely changes, but we won't touch on that. Poppy, on the other hand, spends its time having you go through a number of environments. If they scaled down the level size, you could have spent more time working on fulfilling puzzles and programming a monster that actually follows and scares you. But instead we have 3 connect the dot puzzles and a scripted chasing that rivals a Crash Bandicoot level. Throughout the Vortex fans, can I get a oh yeah? Don't actually sit back down where you should be embarrassed that we like that game. Okay, this is going to be so pretentious, but let's talk about puzzles and what makes a puzzle good in the first place. I'm not too sure who said it, but if I do, I will link it in the description below. Or if you guys know, please link it and I will pin that comment. But a puzzle is broken up into 4 elements. 1, observing the puzzle. 2, mentally solving the puzzle. 3, completing the puzzle by using the game mechanics. 4, the payoff. There's a catch, right? Steps 2 and 3 need to be fun. Completing the puzzle needs to be engaging. For example, Portal or Portal 2. As you complete a puzzle, you're an active element in that puzzle. You are timing portals and flying through the air, and most importantly, you are having fun. But in Poppy, you are still using game mechanics to complete the puzzle, but they aren't fun. You are just walking around with the occasional click of the mouse. So if it's not scary and the puzzle sucks, then why play? I feel like you get a similar answer anytime you ask a FNAF fan the same question. The lore. Quick side note, as you probably can tell from my FNAF video, I believe that a game's lore doesn't make it good.
Do you know why people give a shit about FromSoft games?
I'll give you a hint. It's not because of the lore. It's because of the gameplay. It's there as a supplementary material. It's not the crutch of the whole game. Now, when I was first playing this game and saw the credits for the first time, there was one thing that stuck out to me. There was 5 people for story, 2 more for additional story. All I have to ask is how? For a game that will last 30 minutes, how did you have 5 people writing the story? Oh, because of the lore. Bethesda only had 1 master lore keeper on their books for the Elder Scrolls series. And that's an epic fantasy series that hasn't been good since Morrowind. This is why the game feels crowded with a story and lore that feels unnecessarily complicated. The term too many cooks in the kitchen feels a bit redundant at that point. What is the lore then? Side note, I will only be touching on the lore in this episode as it is so small and kind of irrelevant to the bigger picture, and is one of the marketing techniques that they use to sell the rest of the series. Well, you're an ex-employee returning to the Playtime factory because you've received a note from a mysterious stranger. Ooh. So the lore is delivered to you in the form of multiple tapes. So let's just break down what those tapes go through real quick. The first one, the lore. Ooh. People are overworked because of the new orphanage and because of stuff. Ooh. Which, okay, cool. we're all overworked. Some Gen Z person being interviewed for a job who says like some of the most realist shit about like, you know, the whole concept of dying. And a reference to a mysterious creature below called 1006 and referred to as the prototype. Woo. Hinting towards the big bad scary monster at the end of this series. So that's the end of the tapes that are given to you.
So the actual story beats of the game are:
you go to the office, meet Huggy Wuggy, you escape Huggy Wuggy, and you take Poppy Playtime out of her cage. Then it ends. Okay, so let's go over this and what questions one would have after completing this game. What is the orphanage program? Why is the Gen Z employer so fucking based? What is the prototype? These are 3 questions. So why do you need 7 writers for all of that? Oh wait, the unseen lore. You know the stuff that the guys spent more time on than anything else. Wouldn't it have been fun to actually experience some of that story or something, considering you have the writer's room working on it? But now we have a story that can be summed up in a couple of sentences. Now, I want to say there is no issue with using a teaser to hint at a story. Look at PT, for example. That told an isolated story focusing on Lisa and what happened to her, using the radio, the fetus, and the environment. It was so effective in engaging its audience that people are still pissed to this day that the Piss Pants company cancelled it. But nope, instead it would rather tell us a story without saying anything at all. So why was it so successful? I will take that one for 500, Alex. The visuals? I won't dwell on this too much because such a subjective thing, but I think this game is ugly. I know you guys are using the most recent version of Unreal according to this forum, but bloom and shiny graphics don't make a game look good. Pick an art style that doesn't look like Star Trek 2009. Give me in the dark with the ability to barely see anything with environmental lighting to enhance the experience, and I might actually get scared. But because I can see everything, I am fine. So where does it go from here? Hey, what are you doing with that shit?
Wait, get away from the fan!
Mob Games states on Poppy Playtime's Steam page that Chapter 2 is triple the size of Chapter 1. And I can't disagree with that statement. Playtime Episode 2 is 3 times the size of the original game. The game starts off where the last game left, with the glass cabinet being opened and Poppy being let out. First, you make your way into Ludwig's office by completing the latest in-game design, platforming. Now, arguably, this is a great idea and works well with the grab pack, this series' gimmick. I would like to add that this mechanic does have a nice learning curve to it, and once you get used to it, you'll be swinging like Spider-Man. But with the introduction of this mechanic, it does show another weakness within the engine. You feel pretty floaty, and at times, you just feel like a grab pack floating in midair. Regardless of the jank, you make your way into the office and find a cassette tape and a golden statue. 2 of the collectibles for this episode. We've previously gone over the VHSs, and I'm not too sure what the trophies do. I don't know, did you put them on the mantle? Like, it's clear that these collectibles and trophies and stuff are there for one reason, to add replayability to your game, which I don't have a problem with, especially when your game has less than an hour of content. But I take issue when you're asking me to replay a game that is fundamentally broken and borderline unplayable. After you drip-fed the lore in order to give this game a longer shelf life and to promote MatPat to make a video on it, you move behind the office and meet Poppy, the titular character the series is named after, but mysteriously doesn't have any merch in the store. Sadly, she isn't given much to do in this episode and falls into a glorified door opener and damsel, which is followed by a quick betrayal and then forgiven almost immediately in the next episode. But the catch here is in the tonal consistency of the character within these 2 episodes. At the end of the first, you cut to black and it is treated as if you opened Pandora's box, but throughout this episode, she's your ally and attempts to help you along the way. You might argue that this is good storytelling because you don't know what side she is on, but I disagree. If you have a character, you can't keep flip-flopping between these 2 depictions. She needs to be consistent, and honestly, I think this inconsistency harkens back to the number of writers that they had. Bloated writer's room doesn't mean a story will be good. Look at the current state of Marvel. Also, Marvel has always been like that, you've just gotten older. Anyway, you follow Poppy back through the office and down the hallway to a massive hall. But as you reach her, a hand comes and picks her up and drags her down the hall. Doing the only thing you can, you jump down and follow her. As a side note, when I originally played this on Twitch, link in the description. Oh god, actually that hurt. I let the scene play out, but when I went back to capture footage and refresh my memory, Poppy essentially says something like, "Quick down here." So I sprinted and jumped down before the scene had a moment to play out, just to see what would happen. Nothing did, it just kept me in the darkness until the scene had ended. So you safely land in the next level of the facility. Ooh, a children's playground for testing.
She's sinking! emergency writers!
You make your way through the hallway and stretch your hand out to open the door. Before it reaches the door, it's grabbed by Mummy. Don't ask or look at me like that. They literally named her that. Like, no, seriously, don't, like, it's her name. But it's grabbed by Mummy and ripped off. Yeah, that sentence is going to be clipped out of context. I can feel that right now. I don't feel safe. Now, Mummy Longlegs has a great design, but does it fit into the world as a toy? Yeah. Does it look like something that would have came out in that era? I guess I wasn't around then and wouldn't know what was happening in the toy world then. Now, does it look like a horror creature? Not really. There are 34 rules when it comes to horror, and Mummy Longlegs doesn't follow any of them. If you want more information regarding that, just look up Rule 34 Mummy Longlegs. Sorry, I'm kidding. Don't. But seriously, she isn't scary. I'm sorry, but you can't just darken the eyes of a character and make them scary. Good horror comes from making the normal and mundane feel unnatural. Look at any of Junji Ito's work. For God's sakes, the monsters of the 1980s horror movies are basically all white men who are immortal and have a knack for killing. Look at most horror movies and think about monster designs. 9 times out of 10, you can see the inspiration clear as day. Like, for fuck's sake, FNAF even does this with Chuck E. Cheese. So why doesn't this work? Maybe it's because I don't have any point of reference to compare this to, or the color being used. Which is my favorite color, by the way, but it just doesn't work. After you make your way through the set piece, you are introduced to the hub. I like this. You have a clear goal, and that is get the train running. You are reminded of that goal every time you enter the room. You have 3 levers giving you an idea of progression, all topped off with the famous Poppy Playtime aesthetic, but there's nothing to engage with here. It feels less like a hub and more like a storefront that you double back on to sell your worthless items. But even then, you can't sell any items. There's no way to engage with this hub. It just feels empty, like the rest of the atmosphere. So in this hub world, moving forward, what you do is engage with the doors, open them, and play through a level. It essentially just becomes a Mario world at some point, which helps me with my writing because that means that the next couple of sequences are easy to write about and easy to title card. As you head down the door that you have just opened, you are forced off the natural path to complete a side quest. I put that in quotations in my script because it's not, but I can't think of another thing to call it, but it is just a disruption to gameplay to introduce a new mechanic. You are introduced to this new mechanic after completing a puzzle. And I use puzzle in there in more quotation marks because it really isn't anything. Now granted, all you're doing is pressing buttons, fixing a pipe, and filling a green paint gun, but it isn't engaging. By that I mean, it doesn't challenge me as a player, nor the way I see mechanics. It's always fun to get a power up. Think about your favorite games and how it is woven into the story. I'll say mine. Skyrim and the power of the Thum. You start off by doing a quest to collect a stone and it ends with you fighting a dragon. This starts with you pressing a button and ends with you pressing the 4th button on the same board. This puzzle doesn't enhance your experience, it only wastes your time. So let's go over the new mechanic. The new mechanic is a green hand that lets you store electricity and disperse it at other objects. The only catch is that power only lasts for about 10 seconds, which is an interesting gimmick and does add to the puzzle possibilities. So I'm very excited to see where it goes from here. So once you finish this, you go off and play the first mini game. And when I say mini game, I do mean mini game. So what is it? Is it something to do with a new mechanic? Is it something interesting? Is it something that I will only be able to get in this world using these mechanics? And it gimmicks the ever-living shit out of the new mechanic, and I love it because it's just fun and different. Nope, it's just Simon Says. I'm not kidding, it is Simon Says with extra steps. And the only deterrent from getting anything wrong is a massive killer buddy with symbols that is slowly being lowered down to jump scare you. This is what I expect from a FNAF fan game on mobile. Oh, wait. But no, because they have budget, it now takes place in a 3D environment and has graphics. This isn't fun. I'm not engaging with the mechanics, I'm just playing fucking Simon Says. And yeah, it ramps up with additional colors and stuff, but it's still Simon Says. After you complete this mini game, you collect the first part of the code, and then you walk off the stage you just completed the puzzle on, and now you must complete another puzzle that involves moving a crane. And it was during this I realized something. This game is a walking sim with puzzle elements and set pieces. This section should be scary, and there should be some kind of urgency to complete this puzzle, or some kind of enemy I have to avoid to complete this puzzle, but there isn't. But no, I am left alone with no threats and no urgency to complete this puzzle. Like, nothing. Am I even playing a game at that point, let alone a horror game? I'm just completing puzzles between set pieces to prevent the game from being labeled as a walking sim and to pad time. After completing this puzzle, you are faced with a puzzle that actually works and is actually fun and rewarding to complete. Granted, this is another power puzzle, but with the addition of the lift and the green hand, this means I'm now actively engaging in the puzzle and using the mechanics to solve it, instead of just walking around trying to find the pattern that allows me to connect the wires. After this, you walk through another hallway and loop back to the hub of the game. After pulling another lever and opening the second door, you enter the second and worst minigame of the bunch, Whack-a-Huggy, or Whack-a-Wuggy. I generally don't care to check because I want to put in the same amount of effort that the game developers put into this section. I want to reiterate that I'm not checking because they didn't put in effort. This game is essentially whack-a-mole, but with the same twist as before, being in the third dimension. So this is when you're going up against your biggest enemy, the lighting and the laggy controls. Okay, so the lighting was so bad on my second playthrough to collect footage, I actually had to turn the in-game brightness up to be able to see while I was playing. For God's sake, IGN tells you to increase the brightness. It essentially ends by saying that keeping the lighting up makes the game actually fair. What they actually mean is makes the game playable. This is just hostile design towards the player. You are fighting against the art and the graphics to play this fucking game. But no, the lighting makes it look next gen. No, it doesn't. It looks over the top and gives off the same energy as FMV. Full motion video for those who aren't old. Okay, this is where my biggest issue comes from. And I just want to preface it by saying I understand that you can't have the player spamming the trigger in order to create some form of strategy, and there could be some delay in there. There'll be points in this game where I would be clicking upwards of 3 or 4 times, but nothing would happen. And in a situation like this, focusing on reaction time lag is unacceptable. So there's either 2 options. The game is broken and it comes down to bad programming, or 2, this was intentionally programmed and the intention of the developer is to put you in a situation that relies on reaction time and intentionally disrupt your preconceived expectations of the hands in an attempt to take control away from you and get a cheap scare, or worse, prolong the gameplay. Either way, the reason is the fault of the programmer and will likely never be fixed, and at worst is hostile programming towards the player. All these combine into making an experience that is unfair and to an extent unplayable. Once you finish this dumpster fire of a task, you collect another part of the code, but you can't walk through the way that you came in, because that would make the game too short. Instead, you must complete a door and trolley puzzle. And to be honest, this is fun. It's funny that the moments between the set pieces are funner than the actual set pieces. It takes a moment to introduce you to a pink Huggy Wuggy, experiments with a new gimmick, and you have instant feedback with the trolley moving around. It's basic, but it's a fun puzzle. After completing this, you're plopped down into the hub once again. We end the trifecta of mediocrity by playing a game of red light, green light. For this minigame, you are followed by PJ, the pug-caterpillar combination, and one of the most marketable plushies, characters of all time. The gimmick of this level is that you can't move when the lights are on, and when I say you can't move, I mean you can't move an inch. Say you're swinging from one of the monkey bars because of the physics engine, instant death. At this point, it's not the player's error. You're hindering the player because of the engine that you chose. Also, PJ doesn't follow you, but instead follows a predetermined path, meaning that you're essentially playing a 3D side-scroller. Doesn't that sound fun? Because I know that my favorite part of every Mario game is the 2D side-scrolling parts. Once you finish the course, instead of completing it, you break through one of the windows and escape, which kind of rubs me the wrong way. There's no indication that Mommy won't keep her word. She was annoyed that you didn't die in the last 2 challenges, but this time she wants to rig the game, and to be honest, she couldn't have unless she was the one who programmed the invisible wall at the end of the course. But now you're on the run from Mummy, and it's time to escape. So, now that you're on the run, does that mean that there's someone behind you? Someone tracing your steps? Someone hunting you? No. What do you think this is? A good fucking game? Nope, it's just padding and running around. Instead of a power door puzzle, you must now collect a toy from a conveyor belt and use it to unlock the door. This puzzle is essentially the same as the green hand puzzle. You are just pressing buttons in order to collect a new item. After completing this, you are now Could you imagine if I actually fucking sounded like that? I wouldn't be making these videos. I would actually probably be getting laid. After completing this, you are now faced with the best puzzle in the game. Another power puzzle, but this time it engages your skills you've been practicing. The timing power hand, the swinging... Oh, is that it? I think it says something when the best part of your game has the player engaging with all gameplay mechanics only has 2 to list. Anyway, you finish this and begin to continue before being cornered by Mummy and told that the game of hide and seek begins. And you think, create a chase sequence that actually adds tension? And if I get too far, it sounds like she has a roaming mechanic? At least that's what I thought. And then I realized in order to program that, it would have taken money away from the merch budget. So instead you get a scripted set piece with scripted scares. It's more glorified walking with a puzzle or two, with you regressing into a scripted hiding place, waiting for Mum before she can leave. It all culminates with Mummy being caught in some gears and crushed, and what looks like the big bad prototype making a cameo, or if you're my age, a Coraline reference. Then you rescue Poppy and the last piece of the code, and you enter the train and ride off to the sunset. At least you would if Poppy hadn't betrayed you. The script says act shocked when delivering that last line, but why would I? If they let me escape, how would they milk the franchise? Okay. Resulting in the brakes failing, the train speeds becoming unstable and crashing, leading a cliffhanger for episode 3. Okay, but that will be for the next episode. I'm gonna leave that for a later date because episode 3 is so fundamentally different from these games. But now let's just talk about the lore of the episode. Besides the old cameo from the YouTuber that gained the same reaction I got when watching the FNAF movie and seeing MatPat, okay. I didn't find myself involved with the lore as much. Maybe it was the fact that I had a deadline for this video, or because the gameplay was so unfun, I didn't want to spend more time playing this than I had to. I will do a full lore review at the end of the series, but in order to fully review the story, I need to see how it plays out. And as I see it now, it's like being blindfolded and having someone hit you with a baseball bat. I could discuss how much I enjoy it, but I'd rather have a blindfold off and being able to criticize their swing as they do it. But yeah, I wanted to take some time away from the script and just give you my genuine opinion of Poppy Playtime so far. The first episode is bare bones, and that's understandable for it being free and everything, but this second episode is inexcusable. It is unplayable, and it is just shocking to me that they were able to continue on after this. It genuinely feels so hollow and feels like just a reason to peddle merch. It does make me worry about the future of horror in the industry and indie gaming, but this isn't on them. I know from first-hand experience that episode 3 is amazing, which I actually will be playing on Twitch once I get back from PAX Melbourne. So if you guys are down in Melbourne, feel free to say hi to me at PAX. I will be with my partner and I'll be wearing a mask, so come and say hi. But if you do want to see me on Twitch, I do stream Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Link will be in the description. And I do just want to say thank you so much for doing this and being here on my journey. It might not seem like a lot, but 300 views the other day on that FNAF video was insane. And has really just given me that motivation to maybe do more and actually create stuff. And was one of the main reasons why I spent so much time on this video. But I just wanted to say thank you, and I would appreciate it if you did like and subscribe and share this around. But like I said, thanks for watching, and I appreciate your company tonight.